"Choose, Maria," he said. "Either her or me." For a second, I couldn't breathe. The words hung in the air like smoke, heavy and impossible to grasp. My husband, the man who once swore he'd never hurt me, stood in front of me, eyes hollow, voice trembling with a kind of desperation I couldn't name. I wanted to ask him what he meant. I wanted to believe I'd misheard, but somewhere deep in my chest, beneath all the confusion and disbelief, a small, sharp voice whispered the truth I wasn't ready to face. He's not talking about just anyone. That was the night everything I thought I knew about love, loyalty, and family came undone. If you had seen us just a few months earlier, you'd never have guessed how fragile our marriage really was. David and I had been married for 12 years. Not perfect years, no marriage ever is, but enough good moments to build a life on. We met in college, both broke, both stubborn, both convinced the world would someday reward our hard work. He was quiet but ambitious, a man who believed actions spoke louder than words. I loved that about him, how he never promised much, but always delivered. Our home was modest, a small brick house on the edge of town with an overgrown rosebush by the porch and a kitchen window that caught the morning light just right. Every morning, I'd make coffee black for him, sweet for me, and we'd sit in silence before work. It was our little ritual. No grand gestures, just quiet comfort. I worked as a school administrator. David had started his own contracting business. Long hours, late nights, constant phone calls, but I told myself that was part of success. We didn't have children, though we tried. After a few years of disappointment, we stopped talking about it. Instead, we poured ourselves into work, into home projects, into pretending the silence didn't hurt as much as it did. Still, there were moments that made it feel worthwhile. Sunday dinners with his family, where his mother always fussed over him and his cousins teased each other endlessly. I used to love those evenings, the sound of laughter, the smell of roasted chicken, the warmth of belonging. There was one cousin, though, who always stood out. Lena. She was younger than us, maybe late 20s, confident, sharp-tongued, and beautiful in a way that made people stare twice. David had always been protective of her. She'd grown up in a rough household, and he often said she was like the little sister he never had. I never thought much of it. We'd host her sometimes when she needed a place to stay, or help her with job applications. She'd call David "cuz" with this playful tone that made him laugh, a sound I hadn't heard from him in a long time. And I was fine with it. At least I thought I was. It started with the phone calls. Late at night, after he thought I was asleep, I'd hear the soft buzz of his phone and the faintest murmur of his voice, low, gentle, almost intimate. I remember one night, around 1 a.m., the glow of his screen lit up the room. I turned slightly, pretending to shift in my sleep. He froze, then quickly put the phone down. The next morning, I asked him if something was wrong. He smiled, that small, tight smile he used when he didn't want to lie but couldn't tell the truth either. "Just work," he said. "Work at 1 in the morning?" I asked, trying to sound light. He shrugged. "Deadlines don't care about time, babe." I let it go. I told myself I was overthinking. After all, this was David, the man who stayed up late to fix our leaky sink, who once drove 3 hours to pick me up when my car broke down. He wasn't that kind of man, but the feeling didn't leave me. One evening, we were supposed to have dinner with his mother. David called to say he'd be late, some client emergency. I went ahead to the house. When I arrived, Lena was already there, laughing in the kitchen with his mom. Her laughter was easy, too easy, and for a moment I felt something in my stomach twist. "Oh, hey, Maria," she said, turning to me with a grin. "Didn't expect you yet. David said he might be running late." That was strange. How did she know that before I did? It was a small thing, a tiny crack, but once you notice a crack, you can't unsee it. That night, I lay in bed alone, the clock ticking beside me. 10:43, 11:12, 12:1. When he finally came home, his shirt smelled faintly of perfume floral. Expensive, not mine. He kissed my forehead, said he was exhausted, and turned away to sleep, and I just lay there, staring into the dark, listening to the steady rhythm of his breathing. I told myself I'd ask him in the morning. He didn't, because asking would make it real. I tried to bury it, tried to find normal again, but small things kept breaking through: the way he guarded his phone, how he started showering the moment he got home, how he suddenly had business trips to nearby cities he'd never mentioned before. One afternoon, I decided to surprise him. I packed a small picnic lunch and drove to one of his work sites. His crew said he'd left hours ago. When he came home that night, I asked about his day. He said, "Busy. Same old." And something in me, some quiet, loyal part that had been holding everything together, finally cracked. A week later, I found the text message. It wasn't explicit, but it was enough. "I miss your voice. Feels weird not hearing from you today. The number wasn't saved, but I recognized the tone. The familiarity, the way she always said voice like it meant more than it should. I stared at it for a long time, then typed a single word. Who is this? No reply. When David came home that night, I was sitting in the dark. His phone buzzed once, twice, and I saw his eyes flick toward it before he quickly silenced it. That was the moment I knew. I didn't have proof, not yet, but I had enough. Enough to know the man sitting across from me wasn't the same one I'd married. Enough to know something between us had already died. The next morning, I woke up before dawn. The air was heavy, the kind that pressed against your chest. I made coffee but didn't drink it. I just sat at the table, staring at the steam, waiting for something to make sense. When David came downstairs, he looked startled to see me awake. "You're up early," he said, trying to sound casual. I couldn't sleep. He hesitated for half a second, a small pause, but enough for me to see the guilt flicker behind his eyes. "Everything okay?" he asked, reaching for the sugar. I watched him stir his cup, the spoon clinking against the mug, slow and steady. My throat felt dry. "You tell me," I said softly. He froze mid-stir. "Maria, what's this about?" I slid his phone across the table. The message was open, the one I'd found last night. For a long time, he didn't say anything. His jaw tightened, and he rubbed the back of his neck, a nervous habit he had when he was caught in a lie. Then he sighed. "You went through my phone?" I almost laughed. That was the best he could come up with? Answer the question, David. He avoided my gaze. "It's just a client." "Clients don't say they miss your voice," I said quietly. He didn't respond, just took a sip of his coffee, pretending to be calm. The silence stretched between us, brittle and sharp. Finally, I whispered, "Is it Lena?" He looked up, startled, defensive. "What? No, why would you?" "Because she knows things she shouldn't. Because you're always with her. Because when you come home, you smell like her perfume." He slammed his cup down, coffee splattering across the table. "You're being ridiculous." He didn't flinch. "Am I?" For the first time, I saw something dark in his eyes, not anger but fear. And that was all the answer I needed. That day, I went to work in a daze. I remember typing emails I couldn't read, answering questions I didn't understand. My hands were trembling so badly I had to hide them under my desk. At lunch, I sat in my car and stared at the steering wheel. 12 years. 12 years of love, trust, and building a life. And it could all fall apart with one message. But more than anger, I felt humiliation. Because deep down, I already knew. I'd known for weeks. I just didn't want to see it. That weekend, his family invited us over for a small barbecue. I didn't want to go, but David insisted. "It'll look weird if we don't show up," he said. That word, look. As if that was what mattered. When we arrived, Lena was already there, sitting on the porch swing, laughing with his mother. She wore a floral dress and a necklace I'd never seen before. When she saw us, her laughter faltered just for a second, then she smiled, too brightly. "Hey, you two!" she called. I smiled back, but inside, my stomach turned. Throughout the afternoon, I watched them. The small things, the way her eyes followed him, how he stood a little too close, how their laughter had an undercurrent only they understood. His mother noticed me watching. "Maria, dear, you look pale," she said gently. I forced a smile. "Just tired, Mama June. It's been a long week." She patted my hand. "You two work too hard. Take a break. Go somewhere nice together." Her words felt like a knife. I nodded, pretending everything was fine. Later, while everyone was in the yard, I slipped inside to use the restroom. As I passed the guest room, I heard voices. David's. Lena's. The door was slightly open. I shouldn't have listened, but I did. "You can't keep doing this," David was saying. His voice was low, urgent. "You said you'd tell her," Lena whispered. "I will. Just not yet." My heart stopped. I pressed my hand to my mouth to stop the sound that wanted to escape. "David," she said again. "I can't keep pretending. It's killing me." He sighed. And then, God help me, I heard the sound of a kiss. Something inside me shattered so completely. I thought I might collapse. I stepped back quietly, forcing my breathing to stay even. My vision blurred, but I managed to slip out the front door without anyone noticing. I sat in the car, gripping the steering wheel, staring at nothing. There it was. The truth. Raw. Ugly. Undeniable. My husband was having an affair with his cousin. That night, I didn't confront him. Not yet. He came home late, smelling faintly of smoke and cologne. I pretended to be asleep. I couldn't bear to look at him, not when my mind was filled with the echo of that kiss. I lay awake until morning, replaying everything. Every holiday. Every family gathering. every smile she'd given me while sitting across the dinner table. I thought about the times I'd comforted her, defended her, called her family. The betrayal wasn't just from him, it was from both of them. The next few days were unbearable. David acted normal, or tried to. He kissed my cheek before work, asked what I wanted for dinner, even brought home flowers. I played along, silent and careful, because now I had a plan. I needed to be sure. I needed proof, not just for me, but for my own sanity. So, one evening while he was in the shower, I took his phone. I'd already guessed the passcode our anniversary. I went to his messages. There she was, Lena. The thread was long enough to tell a story I never wanted to read. I hate sneaking around. I wish things were different. You mean everything to me, you know that, right? And then his reply, you know I can't lose her yet. Not until I figure things out. My fingers went numb. He couldn't lose me yet? As if I were some obstacle in the way of their perfect little secret. I screenshotted everything, sent it to my email. Then I placed the phone back exactly where it was and walked out of the bathroom before he stepped out of the shower. That night, when he came to bed, he reached for my hand. I pulled away. He looked at me confused, maybe even guilty. But I said nothing, because soon he'd have no choice but to tell the truth himself. I didn't sleep that night. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw them, David and Lena, in that half-open doorway, whispering like lovers. The imagery played until my chest ached. By morning, I knew what I had to do. But before confrontation comes courage, and courage isn't loud. It's the quiet steadiness in your hands when you decide you deserve the truth. So, I waited until Saturday. That was the day his mother usually hosted lunch, the day everyone would be there. I wasn't aiming for drama, but I wanted truth to stand under the sunlight where lies couldn't survive. That morning, David was cheerful, too cheerful. He whistled while shaving, wore his favorite blue shirt, and even made pancakes. It was almost cruel, how normal he seemed. Are you okay? He asked, noticing how quiet I was. I'm fine, I said simply. He nodded, as if that one word satisfied him. But I saw how he avoided looking me in the eyes for too long. We drove to his mother's house in silence. The air between us was thick, every breath felt borrowed. The house smelled like roast chicken and rosemary when we arrived. Family chatter filled the living room, laughter, clinking dishes, the television humming softly in the background. And there she was. Lena. She turned when we entered, her smile faltering for a fraction of a second before it returned, perfectly polite. Hey, you two, she said, voice a touch too bright. David smiled back, that familiar softness in his eyes. That tiny exchange, so practiced, so subtle, was all the confirmation I needed. I greeted everyone, then excused myself to the kitchen. My heart was pounding so loudly I thought someone might hear it. When David followed me a few minutes later, I knew it was time. Maria, he said, lowering his voice. What's wrong? You've been distant all week. I turned to face him, holding his phone in my hand. You tell me, I said quietly. His eyes flickered, not confusion this time, but recognition. Where did you get that? He asked, voice sharp. You really shouldn't use our anniversary as your passcode, I said almost gently. He froze. The color drained from his face. Maria, I read everything, I said. Every message, every promise you made her, every lie you told me. The room was silent except for the faint ticking of the clock above the stove. He opened his mouth, but I cut him off. Don't bother denying it. I know it's Lena. The way his jaw clenched, the way his shoulder sagged, that was my answer. I took a deep breath. She's your cousin, David. How could you? His eyes closed, and when he finally spoke, his voice cracked. It's not what you think. Then what is it? I demanded. Explain to me how sleeping with family isn't what I think. He ran a hand through his hair, pacing. It's complicated. It's disgusting, I interrupted, my voice trembling now. You brought her into our home. You made me feed her, laugh with her, trust her. I didn't mean for it to happen, he said weakly. Then why didn't you stop it? He didn't answer. The kitchen door opened suddenly. It was Lena. Her eyes widened when she saw the phone in my hand, then flicked to David. You told her? He shook his head. But it didn't matter, I already knew. You should go, I said coldly. She didn't move. Maria, please. Don't. I stepped closer, my hands trembling but my voice steady. You were supposed to be family. Her eyes filled with tears, but I didn't feel pity. Not anymore. I didn't plan this, she whispered. I swear, it just happened. That's what people say when they want to excuse betrayal, I said. She looked at David helplessly. He stared at the floor. Say something, she urged him. And that's when he whispered those words I'll never forget. Maria, choose. I blinked. What? He lifted his head slowly. If you can't forgive me, then maybe it's better if you walk away. But I can't lose her either. My breath caught. Are you asking me to choose between your wife and your mistress? He swallowed hard. I'm asking you to be honest with yourself. You deserve happiness. So do I. For a moment, I couldn't even speak. My vision blurred with tears. My body shaking. The room felt like it was spinning. Then I laughed, not out of humor, but disbelief. You're asking me to choose? After everything you've done? He said nothing, so I gave him his answer. I choose me, I said. Because clearly, you never did. I walked out of that kitchen, out of that house, past his stunned family who watched as I grabbed my keys and headed for the car. I heard his mother calling my name, confused, worried, but I didn't stop. As I pulled out of the driveway, I caught one last glimpse of them standing together on the porch and looking torn, her crying into her hands. 12 years of marriage ended in a single afternoon. For days, I stayed with my sister, numb and quiet. David called a few times, left voicemails I didn't listen to. His mother tried to visit, bringing food, saying, "He made a mistake, Maria. We can fix this." But some things can't be fixed. Not when they've rotted from the inside. Then, one evening, Lena called. I almost didn't pick up, but something made me answer. "Maria," she said softly. "Please, just listen." I stayed silent. I didn't mean to ruin your marriage. I didn't even know we were related. Not until recently. My breath caught. "What are you talking about?" She hesitated. "My mother never told me who my real father was. I found out last month he's David's uncle." The phone slipped from my hand, so she hadn't known. Not at first, but that didn't erase what they'd done after. Later that night, I sat by the window watching rain trace patterns down the glass. Maybe that was the cruelest part, realizing that even when truth came out, it didn't bring peace right away. It just exposed a deeper kind of pain. I thought about David's face when he said choose, and I realized he wasn't asking me to choose between him and her. He was asking if I'd keep protecting his secret. And my answer was still the same. I chose me. The morning after Lena's call, I sat at my sister's kitchen table, still in my robe, fingers wrapped around a cold cup of tea I couldn't bring myself to drink. Her words echoed in my head. I didn't even know we were related. It didn't make sense. It didn't make it right. But it changed something in me. Because now, the betrayal wasn't just emotional. It was generational. It was the kind of wound that bled through families, staining everything it touched. My sister Nina slid a plate of eggs in front of me. "You need to eat," she said softly. I nodded, but didn't pick up the fork. "You know," she continued, "you don't have to decide anything right now. Let it breathe." I almost smiled. Let it breathe. Like it's a living thing. "In a way, it is," she said. "Grief always is." She was right. I wasn't just mourning a marriage. I was mourning the version of myself that believed in it. By midweek, the calls from David stopped. The silence was louder than any apology he could have given. But one afternoon, his mother, Mama June, showed up unannounced. When I opened the door, her eyes were swollen from crying. "Maria," she said, voice trembling, "please don't shut us out." I stepped aside to let her in. She sat on the couch, hands clasped tightly in her lap. "I don't know what to say. I feel like I raised a stranger." Her words cracked, and my own tears threatened to fall. She went on. "He came to me after you left, told me everything, said he couldn't live with himself." I looked away. "Did he tell you who she is?" She nodded, shame flooding her face. "I didn't know either. Lord, if I had—" She shook her head. "That girl's been through enough, but this is sin, plain and simple." Her voice broke on that last word, and I felt a pang of sympathy. Because Mama June was innocent too, caught in the crossfire of her son's choices. She reached for my hand. "Maria, I know you're hurting, but please don't disappear. You're still part of this family, no matter what he's done." That was the kindest thing anyone had said to me in weeks. But peace has a way of shattering when truth starts spreading. 2 days later, I went to pick up some things from our house. I hadn't planned to stay long, just enough time to gather clothes and paperwork. When I pulled into the driveway, a car I didn't recognize was already there. Lena's. My heart began to race. Inside, I found them in the living room. David looked exhausted, hair unkempt, eyes red-rimmed. Lena sat on the couch, her hands folded tightly together. The air was thick with tension. "I'll be quick," I said flatly. "Maria, please." David started, stepping toward me. "We need to talk." I raised a hand. "No, you need to listen." He stopped. "I kept your secret," I said. "But not anymore. Your mother deserves the full truth, not just what you choose to tell her. Lena stood. Maria, please don't. You don't get to please me anymore, I said sharply. Do you have any idea what it's like to sit across from someone at dinner while they're sleeping with your husband? To be the only one who doesn't know? Tears welled in her eyes. I'm sorry. Sorry doesn't unbreak what you both shattered. David ran a hand over his face. What do you want me to say? That I'm a monster? Fine, I am. But it wasn't love? I cut in. Don't you dare call it that. Love doesn't destroy families. He went silent. When I left the house, I didn't just take my clothes. I took every piece of dignity he tried to strip from me. And then I did what he never expected. I told the truth. That evening, I called Mama June. I told her everything from the messages to the affair to the secret Lena had shared about her father. There was silence on the other end. Then a choked sob. Lord help us, she whispered. This family's been cursed by its own silence. By Sunday, the truth had spread through the family like wildfire. The cousins whispered. The uncles called it shameful. The aunts prayed louder than ever before. And David, proud, composed David, stopped showing up to family gatherings altogether. Lena moved out of town not long after. She sent me one final message. I know I don't deserve forgiveness, but I'm truly sorry. I hope you find peace. I didn't reply. Not because I hated her, but because forgiveness isn't something you hand out like an apology card. It's something you earn through time and truth. A week later, I received divorce papers. Simple, clinical, final. He didn't ask for anything. Neither did I. I signed them quietly, with hands that didn't shake this time. Afterward, I walked through what used to be our home. The scent of his cologne lingered faintly in the hallway. His tools still sat in the garage, the same way he'd left them. It felt strange, standing in the ruins of a life I'd built so carefully. And yet, I didn't feel broken anymore, just emptied. And sometimes, emptiness is the first real peace you get. The next few months passed quietly. I moved into a small apartment near the school, started reading again, cooked for one, slept through the night without waiting for the sound of a door opening, and for the first time in years, I didn't feel like I was surviving someone else's story. I was writing my own again. Still, sometimes at night, I'd think about that moment in the kitchen, his face pale, his voice trembling, saying, choose. And I realized something. He wasn't asking me to choose between him and her. He was asking me to choose between truth and denial. And I chose truth, even though it burned everything around me to ash. Simons best. The seasons changed. And with them, so did I. I learned how to live without the weight of we, without the silence between shared walls, without pretending. But healing isn't neat. It doesn't follow a straight line. It's 1,000 little moments, like folding your own laundry and realizing it's only yours now, and somehow, that's okay. One afternoon, I was grading papers at the cafe near school when a familiar voice broke through the hum of conversation. Maria? I looked up. It was David's cousin, Clara. She was always kind, the only one who didn't pick sides when everything fell apart. Hey, I said, managing a small smile. She slid into the seat across from me. You look good, she said softly. Peaceful, even. Peaceful's a stretch, I replied, chuckling. But I'm getting there. She nodded, stirring her coffee. I saw him last week. He's not doing great. I froze, pen hovering over my notebook. I'm not telling you this to make you feel bad, she said quickly. Just, he's been trying to find work again. Folks don't talk to him much now. Lena's gone, moved out west, I think. I said nothing, just listened. He said you never answered his letter. I blinked. What letter? Clara frowned. He mailed it, months ago. Said it was the only thing left he could give you. That night, I went home and checked the small stack of mail I'd been ignoring, bills, flyers, school notices, and at the bottom, an envelope. His handwriting. I sat at my kitchen table, staring at it for a long time before opening it. Maria, I know I don't deserve your eyes on these words, but I'm writing anyway. Not because I want you back, I don't deserve that, but because I want you to know I finally see what I did. I grew up watching my father lie to my mother and thought I was different because I felt guilty afterward. But guilt without change is just vanity. And that's what I lived in, vanity. I hurt you, and I hurt someone who never asked to be part of that pain. Lena told me she's leaving town, said she can't look at herself in the mirror anymore. I told her I understand, because I can't either. I'm sorry for every time I made you doubt your worth. Every time I made you feel like your love wasn't enough. It was me who wasn't enough, not for you, not for the truth. If forgiveness ever comes, I hope it brings you peace. If not, I understand. You were the best thing I ever had the chance to ruin. David, he didn't cry. Not this time. Because this time, his words weren't daggers, they were ashes. The next Sunday, I visited Mama June. She looked older, not by years, but by heartache. Yet when she saw me, her whole face softened. "I was hoping you'd come by," she said. "We sat on the porch, lemonade in hand, just like we used to," she sighed. "He's been trying to make things right with the Lord. Goes to service every morning now. Helps fix the church roof." I smiled faintly. "That sounds like him fixing everything but what's broken inside." She chuckled sadly. "Maybe this time, he's starting there." There was a pause. Then she turned to me and said, "You know, sometimes God breaks things to show us where the light can get in." Her words lingered long after I left. That night, I sat on my balcony with a candle burning beside me. The city hummed quietly, life moving on, like it always does. And for the first time, I didn't feel haunted. I felt free. I took out my journal and wrote, "Sometimes the betrayal that breaks you is the same one that rebuilds you. The secret that destroys your family can be the truth that finally sets you apart from the pain that raised you." I closed the notebook, blew out the candle, and let the darkness settle gentle this time. A few months later, I went back to church for the first time in a year. Not for him, for me. The choir sang, "It is well with my soul." I sat in the back pew, hands clasped, eyes closed, and for once, I believed the words. Halfway through the service, I looked up and saw him, David. He was standing near the aisle, head bowed, thinner, quieter. Our eyes met. He gave a small nod. Nothing more. And that was enough. Because forgiveness doesn't always come wrapped in reconciliation. Sometimes, it's just two people finally learning to live with what they did to each other. When the service ended, I walked out into the sunlight. The air felt different, lighter somehow. A few steps away, I saw a mother holding her daughter's hand, laughing at something small and silly. For a moment, I thought of what my life could have been if things had gone differently. But then, I thought of what it was now, honest, unbroken. Mine. And I smiled. Later that evening, I visited my mother's grave, something I hadn't done since before everything happened. I placed fresh lilies on the stone and whispered, "Your daughter finally learned how to stand on her own." The wind brushed my cheek like a blessing, and I knew the past had finally loosened its grip. That night, as I turned off the lights, I glanced at the mirror not to check my reflection, but to see the woman who survived it all. She wasn't bitter. She wasn't broken. She was becoming. And in that quiet, I finally said it out loud. "It's over, but I'm still here.